Next, from Springfield, Governor Rauner holds a press conference to announce his issue of an amendatory veto to the SB 1 school finance bill. This runs about 20 minutes.
A few minutes ago, I issued an amendatory veto to Senate Bill 1, the education funding bill. If the changes I have recommended are upheld, Illinois will achieve a tremendous feat. Our state will enact historic education reform. The matter now heads to the General Assembly, where I respectfully request lawmakers uphold the changes I have made to the bill. We all know that politics can be divisive. There has been a lot of debate in this building since I took office, and before that time too. But education is a unifying issue. Whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or something else, we all know the power of a great education. It doesn't matter where you come from or who your family is. With a great education, you can go anywhere in life. Be whoever you want to be. Grow up, get a good job, and provide for your family. Despite our differences, I think that everyone who steps into this building wants the best for our children. More than a year ago, I established the Illinois School Funding Reform Commission. This group came together on a bipartisan basis to study the way we fund our public schools and chart a path to a fairer and more equitable system. Senate Bill 1, as it is currently been written, does not achieve both fairness and equity for all Illinois students. And it did not meet the expectations of the School Funding Reform Commission. So that is why I have issued this amendatory veto. You will see that with my changes, Illinois can achieve historic education funding reform that is fair and equitable to all Illinois children. With my changes, our state ensures that enough resources flow to children in the poorest and most disadvantaged school districts across the entire state. Now let's talk about the calendar. I am beyond disappointed that this bill did not reach my desk until July 31st. Let me be clear, that is entirely unacceptable. It's unconscionable. That is not good faith. That is not serving the children and the families of Illinois. As I have said, education reform is a unifying issue. It crosses party lines. But some people in this building chose to politicize the issue and play partisan football with our kids' future. Democrats knew back in the spring that this bill did not pass the litmus test for fairness and equity for all children. But they walked away from the negotiating table and passed it anyway. And then Democrats in the Illinois Senate spent 2 months using a procedural quirk to sit on the bill, to stall the bill, stall any real negotiations. Negotiations could have kept up this spring. We could have been negotiating all summer long if there was a sincere desire on the other side of the aisle to have those negotiations. Instead, school leaders and families began to get nervous about schools opening on time or being able to stay open. Just last week, there was an article in the Chicago Tribune that said West Aurora School District 129 had to take out short-term debt to tide the district over until state money comes in. And that school district can only stay open until Halloween without state funding. In Bethalto, Unit 8, in the St. Louis area, the school district superintendent said in news reports that the district would not be able to stay open for more than a month without general state aid. It's disgraceful. Last week, I asked some Republicans to go negotiate with Democrats on this issue, even though they refused to send the bill. If Democrats do not want to send me Senate Bill 1, fine. Send something else. But let's put all our cards on the table. Negotiators met for hours this weekend. Negotiations continued even this morning. Unfortunately, lots of talk about coming together, but no real action. Our kids deserve better. We have to do better. So this is the bill that was sent to me. And I've taken swift action as I promised. I believe these changes put Illinois on a better path for all our children. My suggestions ensure that our education funding system is fair and equitable to all students in Illinois. I encourage the General Assembly to move quickly for our kids. Thank you. I'll take questions.
Governor, I just want to clarify, did your amendatory veto remove both the $250 million CPS block grant and the $215 million pension payment for CPS teachers? Were both removed by your veto?
The pension payment still would exist, but it would happen in a separate appropriation, a separate line.
So it's not actually part of your veto, because you can't put
So
something in one bill.
we have passed out to you and everyone every detail of my amendatory veto. So you can check every fact, and if you have any questions, you can be in contact with our team.
Governor, will you summarize what it is that you are changing and why you're changing those aspects?
The short summary is we need to treat all our low-income children equitably and fairly. We have low-income disadvantaged children in Chicago and in Waukegan and in Maywood and Blue Island and Rockford and Danville and Decatur and Springfield, East St. Louis, Carbondale. All of our children should be treated equitably. SB 1 in its current form basically took the significant increase in school funding that I have advocated for and diverted hundreds of millions of dollars of it away from the classrooms around the state and diverted it to Chicago, unfairly hurting children across the state and unfairly advantaging one school district, a school district that has mismanaged its pension systems for decades. The bill also includes massive new spending requirements in the future that ties legislators' hands, elected officials' hands, school superintendents' hands in a way that is unfair and unreasonable. We should have more school funding in the future. I have been a strong advocate for that, but we should not be forcing certain spending. We should not be tying the hands of elected officials.
Governor, can you please address the possibility that with your veto, lawmakers either may not accept these changes or may not be able to override them, and then we don't have a school funding formula, and schools possibly go out without one?
I have issued mandatory vetoes to a number of pieces of legislation that's come to my desk, and there are a number of instances where the legislature acted, redrafted the bill to reflect exactly my amendatory changes, and passed that bill, and then I go on and support it. And I'll give you one example, and there are others. The automatic voter registration bill.
A year to get an agreement on that. You can't wait a year for that sentence.
So I mandatory vetoed that bill immediately. They turned around and passed a new bill with exactly my changes. How long they choose to take to do it is up to the General Assembly, but they have done it. And I'm calling on them right now, pass a bill that reflects my changes, and we can move forward and have our schools open on time with fair funding for everyone.
Governor, you immediately said that this is a Chicago bailout. The BGA and PolitiFact today said that's false by their analysis. Have you seen that? Have you reacted to that? That's been your argument all over down the state and in Chicago.
The math is very clear. Springfield loses $500,000 for its low-income children under SB 1 versus my mandatory veto. There's a diversion of money away from Springfield. Decatur loses $1.6 million under SB 1 that I restore with my mandatory
There's a
veto.
whole harmless for everybody, so everybody gets at least the same as last year under SB 1.
This is the diversion of money from all the schools around the state to one district. And let me be very clear, I care deeply about the families in Chicago. I care deeply about the low-income children in Chicago. I have personally advocated, my wife and I, and devoted our lives to improving the education quality for the children of Chicago. And with my amendatory veto, Chicago children, Chicago classrooms will receive almost $200 million more than under the current funding formula that's been in place for years. This is an improvement. My amendatory veto is an improvement for Chicago classrooms, for Chicago's low-income families, over the existing funding formula that's been in place for years. My amendatory veto helps all children in the state. What the amendatory veto prevents is a diversion, an unfair diversion, removal of money from the classroom to fund a broken pension system that deserves to be reformed and deserves to be treated the same way all teachers' pensions are treated. And I have said repeatedly, I support treating Chicago's pensions just like all the other pensions in the state. We should do that. It should be properly done. The right way to do it is not by inserting that action inside an education funding bill and diverting money from the classroom.
Governor, you campaigned,
The next step forward here is bill sponsors. Have you or other Republicans had any conversations with Senator Bernard trying to persuade him to consider or concur with your AV, and how have those talks gone?
I believe that there are negotiations continuing today. I encourage those to continue. I hope the General Assembly takes action quickly. Our children deserve it. There is no reason to delay. My amendatory veto is there now. It's clear. I hope they concur and either vote to uphold my amendatory veto right there or pass a new bill, as they've done in the past with my amendatory vetoes, and get that to my desk immediately so I can sign it, so our schools can open on time with fair funding for all our children, including children in Chicago and around the state.
Governor, talk about a $100 million voucher program seems to have entered discussions. How important to you is that as part of a final deal if you are to find a compromise with Democrats?
I have been an advocate, strong advocate for school choice my whole life. I believe that parents who do not have financial resources still deserve to be able to choose a school that fits their child the best. I applaud the General Assembly for including equitable funding for charter schools in SB 1. I have left that language in place. That is good language. I applaud them for that. I have been an advocate for tuition tax credit program for years. In fact, I included language to that effect in my budget proposal. I am excited and hopeful that as part of a compromise, if one is worked out, that would include tuition tax credits. I am a strong supporter of that.
Is that contingent? Is passage of that contingent on a deal? Do you require that?
Given the time frame here, schools are expecting to get general state aid in the coming weeks. Do you intend to call another special session to deal with this issue?
What I'm calling on now, now the issue is in the General Assembly's hands. They finally did, after 2 months, what they should have done 2 months ago. I acted swiftly, as I promised. Now my amendatory veto is there. It's crystal clear. The benefit to all children, including the children in Chicago, is crystal clear. I am calling on the General Assembly to act quickly and support the changes I've recommended so our schools can open on time with fair funding for everyone. Yeah. Dave, just a second. I'm calling on Craig and then I'll get you.
How much money that was going to Chicago under SB 1 is now going to districts throughout the state?
Well, that's listed out on a website. Our team can get you all the detail. We can total it up. But I've been traveling around the state, and I will continue to do this, summarizing the impact. Cicero, significantly more money under my amendatory veto. Aurora, significantly more money. Rockford, $4.5 million. Waukegan, $4.3 million more. This is a very important issue. There's an attitude that Chicago is the only community that has low-income children. This is false. Chicago is the only community that has English language learners. That's false. That Chicago is the only city with minority students who are disadvantaged students. That's false. We have those children all around the state, and they all deserve to be treated fairly. Frankly, disadvantaged students, English language learners, and minority students have been growing significantly in the suburbs in Chicago. They've actually been declining in the city of Chicago. And the funding needs to reflect where we can help our disadvantaged children the most. Every child deserves to be treated fairly and to be given the best chance possible, a fair and equal chance at a great education. That's the American way. That's the American dream. And that's what we're fighting to achieve. Yes, Dave?
Thanks, Doug. What makes you think that 3/5 of the House and 3/5 of the Senate will agree on any particular thing here?
Well, upholding this, Dave, it's a great question. Upholding my mandatory veto and passing it in concurrence requires a simple majority. Upholding my mandatory veto, supporting the changes I've recommended,
I'm trying to say otherwise because of immediate effect, because it needs to take effect immediately.
So, okay, so upholding it can be simple majority, and frankly, they could pass a new bill with exactly the changes this afternoon, and I could sign it.
They have a Supreme Court opinion that disagrees with your take on simple majority.
Okay.
Wouldn't that be something, though, that your staff would have found out before you did this? Are you concerned at all that there's a big difference between simple majority and 3/5, and this could all blow up?
What we need is fair and equitable funding. This bill should have been sent to my desk June 1st. I acted exactly as I laid out, exactly as my constitutional authority sets. And we're acting to protect all of our children all across the state, including the city of Chicago, and treating them equitably.
Governor, can
You
you
said
explain?
that other people in this building are choosing to politicize the issue. Yet you just mentioned how you traveled the state, talked about dollars and cents, how much more your plan would offer, and then you would name House Democrats, talking to the press, putting pressure on them. Isn't that politicizing this issue? Aren't you doing the same thing?
Waiting, and not acting and not negotiating in good faith, that's unconscionable. That's using our children's futures as pawns. They should have done the right thing, passed the bill so we could act. And then putting out false spin, Bernie outlined, this isn't a bailout, this is wonderful for everybody. No, that's false. The numbers that I've put out and the numbers I'm traveling the state, and I will every day, is the truth. The economic impact, the economic benefit for every child in the state is laid out clearly in our website. We need the truth to be told to the people of Illinois, not political spin.
Sorry, Governor.
Thanks very much,
Do you
everybody.
want
I
legislators
appreciate
to
it.
continue negotiating, Governor, or would you rather they accept your